support the motion say aye, and those who are against the motion say nay. The ayes have it.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Dennis Adigunloye. President Bola Tinubu in the week presented his first budget proposal to a joint session of the National Assembly. The proposal is titled the Budget of the Renewed Hope, which is geared towards prioritizing internal security in order to create the enabling environment for social and economic prosperity. And for the leadership of the 10th National Assembly, there is emphasis that the legislature is aligned to the Renewed Hope agenda as it presents an opportunity for the three arms of government to work in unison to meet the hopes and aspirations of all Nigerians. Presidents of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and Speaker House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas affirmed their support during the laying of the 2024 budget proposal by President Bola Tinubu.
Our legislative agenda constellates around it, and we believe its faithful implementation will augur well for our nation and put Nigeria on a new growth trajectory.
The House of Representatives will convene the first National Citizens Budget Town Hall to harness public input and opinion on this budget. We are convinced that this will increase transparency and accountability, improve policy making, and increase trust in government.
Strategic streamlining is the term that encapsulates the submissions by these two presiding officers of the National Assembly. They are convinced that President Tinubu's administration is determined to impact positively on all sectors and segments in the country for the good of citizens, going by his antecedents since assumption of office. The reforms touching on economic growth and diversification through agriculture, security and social developments, when effectively implemented, they believe will turn around the fortunes of Nigeria.
A money economy is putting all our eggs in one basket. It is a risk we have taken for too long, and we cannot continue to tempt providence. We also believe that education should be prioritized and something done to stop frequent closures of schools.
The 2024 budget should prioritize social welfare programs to help reduce poverty and inequality. Equally important is job creation and youth empowerment in view of the large and ever-growing youth population. Failure to do this means failure to invest in our future.
While emphasizing resources be judiciously allocated, the legislature insisted on putting heads together for the good of all.
We request Mr. President would mandate honorable ministers and heads of agencies to avoid foreign travels during this period of our engagements with them. Let us remember that our actions today will shape the future of our dear nation. Together, let us work towards a budget that reflects the aspirations and dreams of every Nigerian citizen.
We'll also work to institutionalize pre-budget engagements with the executive to further improve and hasten the budget process.
In the coming days, the National Assembly will engage heads of ministries, departments and agencies of government as they appear to give accounts of previous allocations and defend their spending proposals for 2024.
And some legislators give their initial reactions to President Bola Tinubu's budget of the Renewed Hope.
Presentation today were things already known to us, and they didn't come as anything strange. Reason being that a few weeks back, Mr. President has sent to us two very important financial documents. One was the mid-term expenditure framework. The second one was the fiscal, the FSP, the fiscal strategy paper. And in those two documents, certain principles and benchmarks had been proposed which we considered in Parliament, and in both MTF and FSP reports, we had also given our approval. So the budget that was presented today was based on those fundamentals of what would be the benchmark for the sale of our crude oil during the year 2024, what would be the benchmark for the sale of crude oil, and also what would be the benchmark for our daily production of crude oil. So the presentation that was made today was consistent with the understanding that the Parliament had with the executive arm of government with respect to the MTF and FSP reports. And of course, going forward, obviously, as it was announced by the President and Commander-in-Chief, it is a budget of renewed hope. We are at a time when we need to deal with a lot of issues, which include having to spend our way out of recession. One of the happy things about this budget is that it's a budget that is ensuring that more allocation is given to capital expenditure, more than what the situation had been in the past. Are we there yet? The question is, the answer is no. It is not yet uhuru. We're still looking forward to a situation where in our budgetary allocation we'll be able to allocate much more to capital expenditure, than in the recurrent. But at least what we have is a significant improvement on what used to be the order of the day. And there's no doubting the fact that the budget is also coming at a time when, as a government and as elected representatives of the people, both the executive and legislative arm of government, we must pay attention to the kind of social discontent that we have within our body politic and within the Nigerian society. This is a time that we must pay greater attention to the plight of the poorest of the poor, the vulnerable, and this budget has helped to also address that by making special provisions that will ensure that the National Social Investment Program is sustainable, and especially being able to provide for a lot of our youth, who are not employed, and the need for us to be able to provide them with some employment and skill acquisition program, and to be able to also take care of the vulnerable and the less privileged through the various social investment programs that will be funded through the budget. So by and large, I believe that this is one budget that will speak to the urgent and critical needs of Nigerians, in all strata. One thing that is clear and critical is the fact that we are all resolved to ensure that there is no retrogression in terms of what our budget cycle will be. The 9th Assembly, working in conjunction with the executive arm of government, did so well in trying to reenact and establish the January to December budget cycle. And we are resolved in the 10th Assembly to also ensure that we sustain this. Part of the good thing or the good news about the January to December budget cycle is that when you do that, it makes it possible for our budget and the fiscal regime to be predictable. The private sector can predict us, can plan based on a January to December cycle of budget. The farmers can plan. They know when the rainy season will begin and when it will end, and they're able to plan along that line, especially when we are talking about diversification of our economy from a monolithic economy of crude oil production and sales to agriculture and also mineral development. So being able to sustain the January to December budget cycle is going to help in ensuring that we're able to make the economy to remain predictable. Aside from this, it's also important that we're able to sustain this so that that tradition, which has really helped our economy and is helping us to really grow the economy, will not also become a thing of the past. For us in Parliament, there's no doubting the fact that it's going to be a Herculean task, but it's a task that must be done. What we intend to do is to be back in plenary by tomorrow, which is Thursday, the 30th day of November, to commence the second reading of the budget, the appropriation bill. And of course, we are going to devote the whole of Thursday, the 30th, and Friday, the 1st of December, to the debate of the general principles of the budget, of the appropriation bill 2024. And after that, we will adjourn, for the number of days as will be agreed, in plenary, to allow different committees take on ministry, departments, and agencies who will be coming to defend, their budget estimates. So this will be done, and there's no doubt in the fact that the next 2 weeks is going to be an extremely busy period, and every day for us will be a legislative day. Even though we will not be in plenary session, but our committees will have to sit during the week and on weekends as it may become necessary. We also have an understanding with Mr. President that during the period of budget defense, no honorable minister or head of agency will be traveling out of the country in a way that will make it impossible for them to come and defend their budget estimates. So if we're able to do all of this, we are sure that in 2 weeks, the various committees who, for the purpose of budget passage, will act as subcommittees of the Committee on Appropriation, should be back with their reports, submit such report to the Committee on Appropriation, so that the Committee on Appropriation can collate the reports and then bring them back to plenary session when we reconvene.
I can tell you this is a budget of renewed hope, because it has never happened in the history of this country that our capital expenditure will go very high, and then the debt servicing is lowered. And then at the same time, you will see that we are in a period where the subsidy have been removed, and pushing the effect of those removal, the government now has to initiate palliatives. And based on that palliatives, you see that government expenditure will go up. So when you're talking about expenditure and the recurrent and the current, definitely the differences will be just a margin. But one thing I know that Mr. President have done is in area of taxation, whereby we will harness our taxes and then make sure that all the leakages that are used to come with it are blocked. And once we do that, we generate more revenue for the country. And we're looking at it today is less than 10% tax ratio to GDP. But in the next 3 years, we are looking at having about 18% to GDP, which is a growth rate. And we're looking at a growth rate of about 3-point-something%, which is very good. So in essence, I think this is one of the best budgets that we have received in most recent years.
The philosophical cornerstone of the budget, first and foremost, revolves around the issue of security, because, and this is in consonance with the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, that intends to give security to the lives and property of the people, because that is the primacy of governance. And the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the grand norm of the land, in clear and unequivocal terms, stated that the primary purpose of government is to protect their lives and property and guarantee their welfare. That is the primary purpose of government. And the social contract that the people have with the government, in order for them to surrender their sovereignty to the government, is because government has promised to guarantee peace, order, and good governance. It was on that premise that the people surrendered their sovereignty to government. So that is why the renewed hope budget centers around the issue of security, and a chunk of the budget goes to security in order to protect the territorial integrity of this country and also guarantee peace, order, and good governance in the country so that economic activities will thrive. Without a secure environment, no economic activity will thrive, thereby retarding the much needed economic development and growth that we desire a lot. Then the budget also centers around the issue of job creation. Our teeming unemployed youth need to be meaningfully engaged by way of government creating the necessary environment for job creation. Private sector driven job creation, because government does not have the capacity to give white collar jobs to each and every Nigerian. It is by the government creating the necessary conducive environment for the private sector to thrive. Thereby, it will have the multiplier effect of generating employment. So, government is also going to focus in this year's in the renewed hope budget the issue of job creation, because the employment of our youth is sine qua non to the issue of security. They are interwoven. Without having job for the youth, you cannot guarantee security, because an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So these two fundamentals is very, very important, and it behoves on us as National Assembly to perform our oversight functions effectively now after the budget has been passed, in tandem with the provision of the Constitution, which gives us the power to perform oversight to make sure that the budget is implemented in accordance with the spirit and letters of the Appropriation Act, so that the dividends of democracy will permeate down to the doorsteps of the people.
All right, the proposal is obviously now being read for the first time by the President himself. I see that you will be sitting in plenary today and probably tomorrow. What's the process now for the legislation?
Yes, it has already gone read for the first time. Right now, it has been read for the second time. Debate is ongoing on the second reading of the bill for the general principles of the bill, that is the budget appropriation bill. After that, it will be committed to the committee of appropriation, and whereby the budget defense will now commence, whereby ministries, departments, and agencies will come to the National Assembly to defend their budget. After which, committees will now submit their budget, their report of their interaction with the ministry, department, and agencies to the appropriation committee, and then the appropriation committee will now lay the budget before the House, and then the House in the committee of supply will consider clause by clause the bill and then pass it for third reading, and once third reading is done, it will be taken to Mr. President for assent. That is the process.
I'm expected to distinguish the importance of this January to December budget cycle.
Yes, and that is why we are committed to maintaining the January to December budget cycle, in spite of the fact that the budget was presented late by Mr. President. All hands are on deck by the members of the National Assembly, and it was against this backdrop that we have now decided to sit on Fridays and Saturdays to work hard to make sure that the budget is passed before the end of December or before we go on Christmas break, in order to maintain the January to December budget cycle for Nigerians that gave us the mandate to represent them to enjoy the dividends of democracy in full cycle rather than half cycle.
All right, lastly, very briefly, I know you're in case, but just as a chairman, Senate and Judiciary,
Yes.
just give us your take on what's been happening recently with regards to these attacks of judicial arm with government by certain political
Well,
such with regards to these decisions by the appellate courts, particularly in Jos and other areas.
well, my advice to politicians is that they should stop desecrating the judiciary simply because they lost their case. You know, proof of election petitions are on the balance of probabilities or preponderance of evidence. If you fail or neglect woefully to bring facts before the tribunals or the appellate courts, as the case may be, you cannot expect the appellate court or the tribunal to embark on a journey of expedition for them to fish for evidence why you have not brought evidence before them. The duty of the court is to apply the law to the facts before them. Why you did not come up with facts before them, there's nothing they can do. That is why election petitions are so generous in nature, and their proof is on the preponderance of evidence or balance of probabilities. You have to bring hard facts before the case. You don't expect the court to embark on a journey of exploration like Mango Fak or Vasco da Gama. You know, you have to bring hard facts before the case, before the court or the tribunal for you to win your case. So where they fail, the judiciary is bad. But you see, the trend is where they succeed. Judiciary is the last hope of the common man, is the bastion of democracy, is the judiciary is jealously guarding and protecting our democracy, is the last hope of our democracy. That is where politicians win their case. But where they lose their case, they will now say, judiciary has not done justice, it has been compromised. So I think we should try as much as possible to, in our democracy, be magnanimous in victory and gallant in defeat. That is only way we can attain a cruising altitude in our democratic experience, rather than running helter-skelter to the courts without having the necessary facts, and where you lose, you now go out and discredit the judiciary. And unfortunately, even people of high esteem in the bar, senior advocates, coming out to desecrate the image of the judiciary simply because they have lost their case is an unfortunate scenario that we must nip it in the bud in order to protect our hard-earned democracy, and also in order to protect the image and sacredness of our judicial arm of government, because the judicial arm of government, as it is now, that binds the nation together and held the nation together.
Well, that concludes the program for this week. Thanks for watching. I am Dennis Adigunloye.